What's up, everybody? It's Dinger time. That's right.
Woo-hoo!
You're here with Dingers with the boys. That's boys with a Z. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. I'm Tim, and I'm here with the big baller, shot caller, Kyle.
Yo, how's it going, everybody? Hope everybody had a great New Year's. We're back. It's 2024.
Whoop!
Super excited to see what this year brings us. Last episode, all the way back to last year, we talked about NBA Christmas games. They were awesome to watch. Definitely go check out that video if you haven't. It's titled From Tinsel to Tip Off. But definitely just getting straight into this episode. Got a lot to talk about. Let's just dive right in.
Yeah, this week, man, Grambling women beat College of Biblical Studies 159 to 18. That was a D1. Grambling's a D1 women's basketball team. I know College of Biblical Studies is a D2, so it was a little unfair going in. But that's a 141 point differential, which is the largest in women's D1 ever. What do you like? Could you even imagine that?
Nah, I don't even know what to what I would expect or what I'd be feeling watching that game. Just imagine going to that game, and I'd imagine it's probably pretty boring on both ends, just because everybody loves the close games and
Yeah, even
stuff like that, and nobody wants to be on that side of history.
even the girls on the 159, like Grambling, how do you stay motivated to play? And it's like it's not fun.
Yeah, at that
It's
point, it's basically just a practice, and
yeah. I've been in games like that in some just different leagues, and not obviously not that big of a difference, but it almost just gets to where it's why am I even here? Why did I come today?
yeah,
It'd be so hard.
it's kind of interesting too. Like, why would the? It's interesting seeing those games even scheduled because they
Yeah,
got to know going into it that hey, this has the
it's just gonna be such
potential
a
of
blowout.
being a blowout. And but I mean, it's those small schools do like playing like the D1 schools. They probably enjoy getting to have the experience, even though it is a blowout. But
Yeah, it's I just don't understand how it can get that much, and it's not even that long of a game. But
especially like no mercy at
yeah,
all either. At one point, when you go up 100, do you
yeah,
just be like, I use the full 30 seconds of the shot clock? And
exactly. But then on the other
but
side, you don't want to be the girls like on biblical studies because then it's like, oh, now they're just
yeah,
not doing anything and they're still beating us by 100.
yeah,
It's just, it's rough either way. Uh, Professional Women's Hockey League is coming back. The PWHL, they started on January 1st, I believe there was their first game. And I'm excited for it. I hope it ends up turning out pretty good. There's only 6 teams right now, 3 teams in Canada, 3 teams in the US. Got Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Boston, Minnesota, and New York. I believe they've tried this before and it hasn't gone great. But I know on the first game this year, it was in Ottawa, and it actually set the record for attendance for a pro women's hockey game, which was 8,318 fans, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you really think about it, if you can get that every time, I'm sure they're not playing in these massive stadiums. They're probably almost selling out if it's like
yeah.
that.
I know a lot of the teams they've sold out tickets already for the whole entire season. So the season is going to be 72 games total. It's each team will play 12,
24.
24.
Yeah. 24 games total for each team.
Okay.
So it
Maybe
might
I
be
was seeing maybe it was 12 home, 12 away or something.
yeah, it might
That I
be
must
something
have
like
saw.
that. Yep.
But definitely a pretty big season for such a small league already. So definitely awesome to see that they already have sold out tickets and a lot of traction going forward. I'm
I
definitely excited about it. I
I think
think
this just shows with the evolution of just women's games and people being more excited, and you see these more leagues popping up, and like we've talked about the WNBA a lot before, and hopefully this turns into something where they can get more than 6 cities and people actually coming.
well, it's also awesome. Like women's hockey entered the Olympics recently. I think in the last was it the last Winter Olympics was their
I
first
think
year, or
they've been in
maybe
the
the year
last
before.
couple. I'm not 100% sure. I know the
I don't
U.S.
remember for
dominates
sure.
usually. The
Yeah,
U.S. and Canada are
but
pretty.
even like this PWHL, I think it's the Minnesota coach. She used to be a Olympian, or so that will be pretty big. They're getting people from that have already been to the Olympics to be coaches and whatnot. So I'm definitely pumped. I'm waiting for maybe some more stuff to come out so I can pick my team and
Yeah.
kind of back them. And but yeah, I think it's awesome for women out there that it's just another pro thing to
League.
go to as they grow up. And
It would be a lot if the NHL or some of the players could kind of promote it a little bit.
yeah,
I think that would go a long ways. But I know it's on TV, so definitely go check that out. We talked about this a little bit last week, but I wanted to talk a little bit more just because some more information kind of came out. Russell Wilson got benched for the Broncos, and
boo.
I'm not a huge fan of it either. I think they kind of just threw him under the bus, and they're blaming him for a lot of stuff that didn't isn't his fault.
Yeah,
I think there's reports, and he has came out and said that they came to him after that huge Kansas City win, which we've been trying to beat Kansas City for years and haven't. Finally beat him. He was all pumped, and then they came asking him to restructure his contracts, and that's like the worst time to do it.
exactly.
You know, it's just like, what are we doing? What are the Broncos doing?
Yeah, I think them coming and asking to restructure it definitely sucks, but I think the timing of it sucks more.
Exactly.
It's like, how are you coming after such a big win like this on that bye week and asking a player like that? That's just something that you don't do in the NFL. This is supposed to be professional and
Especially,
everything, but it just seems like a disrespectful move.
well, sorry,
honestly.
especially how big of a win it was for Denver.
Yeah.
And people get asked about that all the time to get their
Yeah.
contracts restructured and everything, help out the team and stuff. And people do it sometimes. But it was just, yeah, he's kind of like a scapegoat. And now they benched him, and the offense really didn't look that much different, I don't think.
It looks basically the same.
Which kind of hurts him a little
Yeah.
bit, you know? But at the same time, it's just, I think they kind of did him dirty. And for me, for one, I would like my kids to look up to him. I think Russ is a great person. I don't think he's a terrible football player, especially, I mean, he's won Super Bowls. He beat the Broncos, but I think he is getting a little bit past his prime. However, if he was making 15 million less than what he is, or 20 million less, everybody would be like, all right, he's playing pretty good, I think. And I think he was around ninth or so. I think he was top 10 in this.
Yeah,
the
earlier there
quarterbacks
was
this
talks
NFL.
about him MVP, maybe. Like he's
I
got
don't know about
comparable.
that. I don't
He's got
know.
comparable stats against like Patrick Mahomes, who's
Yeah, but
probably the
he
best
even had it
quarterback.
down. He had a down year or two. I don't know if I would think him MVP, but he's finding ways to win. You know?
I think this whole situation just shows you how professional of a guy Russell Wilson is, though. Just because if it's me personally, like if my manager at my work said, "Hey, we want you to start working for a little bit less. We're gonna cut your salary by this much, but we still expect you to just be okay with it," I'd be upset. That would definitely alter my work.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson, it really hasn't seemed to have phased him on the playing field.
Yeah.
Which just shows you how much a professional he is and how great of a person he is.
And he didn't even say anything until everybody else started saying stuff. He kept very quiet about it, and yeah, like you said, just kept playing. But NCAA championship, the college football championship, is next week. I know we're going to get into that, but the bowl season's coming to an end. It was kind of a whirlwind of bowls. I think the bowl season, it could be better, but I know there's a lot of incentives for different players for different bowls, and I know you've looked at a few of those. So
Yeah, so I looked up what players basically get. So players do not receive cash or bonuses for being in the bowls or winning a bowl. The conference will get some kind of incentive if their team does win the bowl, but players themselves do not. Instead, they receive incentives that cannot exceed $550 per player. So, some examples this year were the Military Bowl, which was JMU versus Air Force. Each player got an Xbox One and an Under Armour backpack. That's pretty cool, I think. Like, just for playing in the game, every single player on the team gets that.
I think that is pretty cool. I I have a tough time with the incentives because the schools and the conferences get them, but the players who are actually playing the game don't get anything. I'm not saying it needs to be a lot, but I feel like they should get something. I mean, I know they get a ring, so
Yeah.
maybe that's it. I don't know who pays for that necessarily.
But definitely, like, the bigger bowls, like the Rose Bowl, each player gets a Fossil watch, an Oakley Works backpack, and a New Era cap. And then the Sugar Bowl, they get the Fossil watch and a New Era cap, which again is like it's not exceeding that $550 threshold, but I'm sure like
It's pretty cool,
some
especially as a
people would
college
rather
student.
have the Fossil watch maybe,
Oh.
but
Especially
I
as
don't
a
know.
college student, because they're probably engraved with at least your team name or something
Yeah.
like that on them, which is kind of cool. But just the bowl season in general, and I think it's gotten so much worse. Is it even worth it now? Because you see all these players transferring and like entering the transfer portal and going to the NFL draft. And I get maybe sitting out, maybe I don't even know if I necessarily get this, but I'm not in that situation either. Maybe sitting out if you're going to the NFL draft because there's a lot of money on the line, and
Yeah.
if you blow out your knee or something, you could lose millions of dollars. So I kind of get that. However, the transfer portal, I don't think it should start until after bowl season because you look at a game like the Georgia Florida State game, and I know Georgia was missing players too, but Florida State, I think it was 25 players or something like that. It was either the draft or the portal, and it just it wasn't even a game. It was I was watching it and I found myself saying a lot of the time, why am I even watching this? And that's not even the only game. There was a lot of other games. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, and even watching that game, Notre Dame was missing some of their top players, and it was cool like they won. However, I still want to see those top players and see what they can do.
Play
And
one
it's
more
just-
time before
Exactly.
you, I think you got a point. I think bowl games, especially those bigger ones with all the people transferring out, it's almost like a preseason game. It's like, oh yeah,
Exactly.
It's turning into like a scrimmage almost. Like it's a preview of hey, what we can maybe see from this team next year.
Well, and even a lot of those guys, though, probably aren't going to play because there's going to be transfers coming into each of those schools.
Yeah.
And so the ones that are transferring, most likely those guys are wanting to play. They're transferring for a reason. They're coming to play. For example, Notre Dame's quarterback, he's probably not going to play next year. We got the transfer from Duke. And so, yeah, we saw him and he played good, but what's the possibility of him really playing? Probably not
Yeah,
much.
probably very
Honestly, there's a
slim.
good chance he might transfer now.
Yeah.
And so-
maybe that's he kind of it was like a tryout for a
Yeah.
highlight clip for him to transfer or something. But
Yeah.
I definitely agree. Like transfer portal definitely should wait until after the bowl game. But NFL, like you're not gonna ever stop people from
Yeah, and I
sitting
understand
out for the
that.
NFL. Like
I
that-
do understand that,
is
especially if
completely
you're one of the top couple of rounds projected. I can see that, but I'm wondering, is it even worth having this many bowls,
I
or
think,
should it go down?
the bowls that end up being the best, in my opinion, aren't even the top teams in the nation. It ends up being the small schools that they're playing for the bowl games because those you never really hear about people transferring out and all that stuff or people declaring for the draft. It's literally like, hey, this has been our team all year. We got one last game to try to go win this bowl, and it's a bowl that you've never even heard of, but honestly, sometimes those games end up being the best, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it
college
is going to
bowl,
get though, because if you're a team that's getting in there and you're a good player, you want to go to one of these top schools, so
Yeah.
you're going to transfer. I just think if they would push the transfer even after, say, January 1st, because then all of the other players or all the other bowls have been like gone. I think it would help tremendously. Or I don't know. There's got to be some, because if you know you're going to transfer, then what makes you play that game anyways? I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the 12 team playoff next year is going to be awesome, because you have the first four get the bye, but then teams 5 through 12, well, they're all still playing. And
Yeah.
if you're going still have a chance in a national championship, you see Michigan and Alabama, Washington, Texas, they didn't really have anybody transfer or sit out because of the draft.
Yeah.
Because they're still going for that national
Yeah,
championship.
everybody wants the chip.
Exactly. So you got a few more of those teams and a few more of those players that it's going to be, man, these are good games. And honestly, watching those two games, and I watched a few others, those were great games. And it was for a reason. But I don't know. It really, I've thought about it throughout the season, but watching that Georgia FSU game, also, it could have just been Georgia so dominant. Watching them play Florida State, I don't know if Michigan, Bama, Washington, or Texas could have beat Georgia, honestly.
Yeah, I was saying it this whole time that I think Georgia should have been in instead of Texas. I think Texas was kind of like the oddball of. I understand Alabama being in because they beat Georgia, but Texas, they only beat Alabama in the regular season, and they beat Oklahoma.
I think it was early in the season,
Yeah,
too.
it was
right?
also early in the season, but
I can't remember who they lost to. Oklahoma State, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember who Texas lost to. But, yeah, I think it would have been a lot better if Georgia could have been in there, even though I think the games were great. And I think Bama should have beat Michigan. They lost 27 to 20 in overtime. I personally think Bama played better. Michigan turned it over a couple times. Bama had that one bad turnover in the second half. But I personally think Bama should have beat Michigan.
one thing I want to ask you, Tim, is so watching that Michigan Bama game, it basically had the script of like your classic classic NCAA NFL game where one team kind of seems to be dominating, then like the other team kind of starts coming up and it's looking like, all right, now this other team is going to just take over. And then Michigan, like they just kept on stalling on offense, making mistakes. It seemed like, all right, Alabama's going to walk away with this. But then all of a sudden, like just something clicks and Michigan, in the span of a few plays, is all of a sudden in the red zone.
Yep.
And then a few plays later, they score a game-tying touchdown. I was like, that just – how many games have you watched exactly like that?
Oh, for sure. And it makes it's honestly fun to watch that. I love close games. And I think when Michigan scored to go 20-19, I thought they might go for two, just the way that they were playing on that.
Especially with the missed PAT earlier.
Exactly. So, yep. And they did miss a field goal earlier as well.
Yeah, they were having kicking troubles all game. But
I think, though, with that game, what drove me crazy, and I think what shot Bama in the foot, honestly, was they couldn't get their snaps down. How many times did they have trouble with the snap?
And I don't know, like, how you've made it this far in the season, and now you're having, like, those problems. Those are, like, that's step number one.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like...
Well, it just throws your rhythm off in the game. It's not even that they fumbled it or threw interceptions or anything like that. But, all right, say you're going 2 or 3 plays, you're playing great. Then you get a snap that's, man, that snap sucked. And, well, all of a sudden, all right, that kind of threw the QB off a little bit. And then, all right, you go 3 and out the next 3 or whatever. And, all right, you're punting instead of going to kick a field goal or a touchdown.
And I thought it was surprising. Like, the announcers were almost saying, oh, no, that's on Milroe. Like, he needs to be able to play that. Like, he needs to be able to, like...
Are you saying the last snap?
All game. Like, every single time the center would snap it low or high or to the right or left, it's like the announcers immediately are just saying, like, Yeah, it was a bad snap, but Milroe needs to
Yeah.
handle that better. Which it didn't seem like they were really giving any blame to the center.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, Milroe had a little tough game. He started running a little bit there in the second half, but I think it was a fun game regardless.
It was their run game that really was what kept them in it.
Yeah.
But
the other one was Washington, Texas. It was 37-31, and this almost looked like it was going to be not necessarily a blowout, but not necessarily that close of a game. However, Texas ended up coming back and had an extremely good chance to win the game at the end. That last, when they put 1 second back on the clock there, and they were at, I think it was the 13 or something, I was like, oh my gosh, Texas is going to this is how Washington is going to lose. Like, this is
like every single, in that last minute, everything that could have gone wrong for Washington was going wrong. And it would have been the most heartbreaking way to go and heartbreaking way to lose because it's nothing that they did wrong. I guess, you can say running into the punt returner, yeah, that's your fault. But it didn't seem like he was trying. He was just simply at the bad time at the wrong time or whatever. But for the running back to get hurt the way he got hurt, forcing the officials to stop the clock, that was just killer. Because had he not got hurt, clock would have went down to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
You're punting, and now Texas only has 10 seconds as opposed to 50.
Yeah.
And the game is basically over. Texas would probably never have a chance to get that close.
Dude, it was that was crazy. I was just, and I didn't get to see the last little bit. I was listening to it, so I didn't get to see the last little bit, but especially those last two plays where there's 0 on the clock, and so Washington thinks they won, but they put 1 second back on. I was just like, man, if Washington loses, that would suck so bad because they were like, oh yeah, we won. And then, nope, 1 second. And so
I think Texas was just very strange on their final 4 plays because you had 15 seconds left on the clock in the red zone. Yeah. You should be taking 4 shots at the end zone, back to back to back to back.
At least within a couple of yards.
Reason, the fact that they didn't was shocking to me.
Yeah.
So
and when you're doing that, you can use the middle of the field, the field. So you don't really have to. And it's not like it was even at the 19 or 20. I'm pretty sure it was at the 13-yard line. And so
exactly, it seemed like they were trying to set up for that 4th play because the very first play they did was literally a draw.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't a draw. They did a pitch play. They got him 0 yards. So it's just okay, that was weird, but whatever. Second play, they did call a pass, but just threw it straight out of the end zone. Probably just because nothing was there. Third play, he scrambled, got tackled, and honestly, they were lucky that there was a second left because, it basically was Texas is trying to give the game away.
Yeah.
But then that final play, it was just an amazing play by the defense, but it just seemed like Texas was almost planning for that. In their 3 plays ahead of that it's like they were trying to set up that, but it just didn't make sense to me of, hey, why don't you just take 4 shots? Yeah. Call that 4th play 4 times.
Yeah. And you can huddle it too.
Yeah.
And then,
but I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. But I think definitely I think Washington was the better team. They showed that all game. Michael Penix Jr. he was playing phenomenally. He could just do no wrong. He's playing hitting his wide receivers. Like we said in the last episode, when we were going over our game picks, that me and Tim both picked Washington to win this game, that we thought those wide receivers were going to be big mismatches. And they definitely proved to be. So
for sure,
I definitely think Washington was the better team the whole game throughout. And I think Texas just kind of it was lucky for them to be even that close.
Even in the game, yeah. Yeah, but either way, we got number 1 Michigan versus number 2 Washington for the college football championship on Monday. But let's take a break before we kind of get into that and hear from a word from our sponsor.
Uh-oh, they're stuck in a lurch. Come on down to Colorado Hat and help them clear out their merch. Colorado Hat Company, soon to be vacating the Colorado Mills Mall. Deals, deals, deals. Everything must go. Tell them the Dinger sent ya.
Welcome back. That was a word from our sponsor. Definitely go check them out over at the Colorado Mills Mall. They'll be there until the end of January, until they're closing up shop. But definitely go check them out. But we're wanting to talk about the college football championship game this Monday. Michigan, number 1 Michigan versus number 2 Washington. It's going to be an amazing game. Both are 14-0.
I think it's going to be awesome. The biggest thing I'm excited about is no Bama, no Georgia, 2 teams that haven't been in the championship in quite a long time. Washington, last time they were in was 1991, and then Michigan, the last time they were in it was 1997. They won both those years, but pretty sure the NCAA championship was a lot different back then. There was no committee. There was no anything like this. So, but yeah, basically biggest point of, hey, it's new teams. Everybody, no, I doubt anybody had these teams making it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Michigan. They could have Michigan, but I doubt Washington.
But yeah, so I'm super pumped to just see new teams.
I'm with you. And I think it does good for the sport too, just seeing the different teams in there. And you're so used to Georgia and Bama and even Ohio State and those huge teams. And like you said, both of these teams, it's been so long since they have been those in the championship. And like we said, it's a little different now with the college football playoffs, and I think it'll even be more once there's 12 teams, because with the 12 teams, it almost makes it kind of like a March Madness in a way.
Yeah.
But it's a little less, but it's a one and done.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what team is going to get hot at the right time. And
exactly.
That's kind of how Washington has been. They come in as the underdogs so much this past few games. They were underdogs versus Oregon in the Pac-12 championship.
Most of the season, honestly.
They were underdogs versus Texas.
Well, and I think you have to give a lot of credit to Michael Penix Jr. the way he's playing. I personally think he should have won the Heisman, but just the way he's playing, I think he is the most valuable to his team. And he's at 4,648 yards this season, 35 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And he just seems to continue to have those keep proving those naysayers wrong. And just the way he's playing and just not making that many mistakes, and he just looks like a very good player right now. And he's got the Huskies in a very good chance to win the championship. I think they're going into this game as an underdog again, though.
Yep. Last time I looked, they're 4.5-point underdogs, I'm pretty sure. And then even on the other side, Michigan, they've kind of been the same way. It's been Michigan versus everybody. That's what they keep on saying all year. Where
I think a lot of the stuff with that was with Harbaugh, though.
Yeah.
All that stuff that went down him, because I think a lot of people had Michigan as that top. I don't think they put them up there with that Georgia. I think Georgia was kind of the top for everybody mostly. But I think with Harbaugh, all the different stuff that's gone on, I think they've almost been even a little bit more in the spotlight. And they kind of have oh yeah, they're an underdog. And I think it's because it's been so long too.
Especially they've been in this college playoff. I think this is their 3rd year in a row, and
I'm not 100%.
They haven't won, so
yeah,
just their past history of being so close but not really getting there and not being able to kind of seal the deal. It kind of has given them the talk of, hey, yeah, we're underdogs too, and they've kind of taken that and ran with it, and it's been a big spark to why they've done so well this year.
Yeah. I think their defense is playing great too. Yeah, they're doing all right on the offense. I don't think they're anybody I mean, I know a lot of people love J.J. McCarthy, but he only has 2,851 yards on the season, 22 touchdowns. He does only have 4 interceptions, so he doesn't throw the ball and throw it away very often. But I think their defense is what's really brought them here. They only their opponents only average 10 points a game, like 10.2 points a game, whereas Washington's is 24. And so I think that would be huge. It is kind of crazy to me, though, both teams have 16 interceptions on the season. And so that seems kind of low to me, honestly, for the entire season. I don't know if I'm like, especially Michigan, because they only average like that, their opponents that 10 points. And so I'm like, man, I would think that they would have a lot more. So that's just
Especially
over one
'cause
interception a game.
I would say both these teams are more like run heavy. Obviously, Penix Jr. has all those passing yards, but
I actually disagree there. I think Washington is more pass heavy. Just looking at who they have, because they have Odunze, who has 87 receptions, Polk 65 receptions, McMillan 39 receptions, Bernard 34 receptions, and Westover, their tight end, 41 receptions. And so, other than Odunze, and I mean Polk's up there too, they spread it very good. Whereas Michigan, their highest reception receiver is Wilson, who has 45. Their tight end Loveland has 42, and their other wide receiver Johnson has 44. And so they're extremely a lot lower than Washington.
I think but once they get into the red zone, though, it's mostly all just running. They rely on Dylan Johnson, and he usually just pushes it in. So it definitely seems like Washington uses the pass game to kind of get there, but then they go get into the end zone based on the run game, which Michigan, it just seems like, hey, we're just going to use the run the whole way.
It's kind of crazy because Corum,
Blake Corum.
Corum, he's carried it 237 times, and he has 1,111 yards this season, which you're like, all right, that's pretty good. But like you were saying, it seems like they run it a lot more. Whereas Johnson has 222 carries for 1,162 yards. However, he only has 16 touchdowns, where Corum has 25 touchdowns. So like you said, like they really go to him, especially close, because it's not like he's breaking any crazy runs or anything. I think a big thing too is going back to their defense. Michigan has recovered 9 fumbles this year, whereas Washington's only recovered 4. So that's a big difference. That's 5 more possessions than Washington. And I think the thing that Michigan does well is they don't get penalized very often. Mm-hmm. And when they do, it's like a 5-yarder here and stuff. Their penalty yards per game is only 26, whereas Washington is 71 penalty yards per game. And so that could come into play big time in the championship game.
Yeah, that definitely played a factor in the game versus Texas. Texas was the one committing all the penalties, and Washington really didn't start committing penalties until kind of later in the game. So, yeah, that's definitely going to be something that I'm going to look forward to watching. And that could just be McCarthy has been in this offense a lot longer with Michigan, and he could be a little bit more experienced. Who knows?
I don't know if it's the offensive or defensive. I wish I would have looked that up to see if it's the false starts or if it's holdings or something like that because of that.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see because, like you said, McCarthy's been in that program longer than Penix Jr. has. I do think McCarthy – I know I keep going back to the defenses, but I think the pressure on those 2 QBs are going to be a big thing as well, because Michigan has had 39 total sacks on the season, which is quite a bit of sacks, honestly, thinking they've played 14 games, whereas Washington's only had 21 sacks. And so that's a huge difference. So I think the pressure could be massive, which it'll be interesting to see how J.J. McCarthy does and Michael Penix Jr. does, because I think Penix Jr. is the better QB by far.
Yeah.
However, I think Michigan's defense could get to him.
Yeah, especially if you don't have time to throw to those top wide receivers.
Exactly.
Odunze and Polk and whoever else is it basically cancels them out. You have this great wide receiver, but we're not going to let you get to him.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that'll be.
And so the running game might be
Yeah.
huge on this, honestly. And it looks like Johnson is expected to play from his injury.
Yeah, great to see that. Watching the Texas game, I was definitely worried for him. You never like to see injuries, and I mean he's battled injuries back since like November, and it's kind of seemed like it's a tape job, and medical staff is just doing everything they can just to get him on the field, and then he's able to go and play, and he'll have a few times where he kind of comes up hobbling, but he just goes right back in the very next drive. So
it'll be interesting to see how he does with this one, just because it's only a week apart, and it's probably the best defense you've played all year. Yep. And so you're going to be getting hit hard. You're going to be getting hit right at the line. They're going to want him to get the yards after contact, and it'll be interesting to see, especially with his leg, if that affects him. But I don't know. I'm excited to watch that game. I hope it's a close game. I like scoring, so I hope there's some scoring. It just adds to the excitement. I could see this, though, being a very low-scoring game. They both average quite a bit of points per game. Washington averages 37.6. Michigan averages 36.0. So they're both up there. However, I could see – I personally, the way I think the game's going to go, I think Washington is going to control the clock. I think they're going to control it. I think their time of possession is going to be higher. However, I think Michigan can, with their defense, get them off the field and not crazy long drives. They might get a few here and there, but I think it's going to be very hard for Washington to get in, Washington to get into the end zone.
I kind of disagree with you there. I think it's going to be mostly Michigan controlling it. I think they have the better running back. Blake Corum's a beast. And I think they're going to rely heavily early on in the run game. And as long as that is going well, then they're not going to go away from that. So they're going to control the clock, I think. But it's going to be Washington that stays in it because of Penix Jr. and their ability to make those deep plays. Penix Jr. has a completion rate of 53% on deep passes, which is insane. That's the amount that it's so high. It's crazy. So I think it's going to be Michigan takes a lot of time off the clock, maybe scores, maybe gets a field goal, and then Washington 6 plays, and they're right back in it. Or
just those deep throws and stuff.
Because you got to think, too, that, this Michigan team and the Michigan defense is very good, but I think they haven't seen an offense as good as Washington. I think, again, just like Texas, these wide receivers are a big mismatch for people, and Michigan hasn't really seen that. So I think it's going to come down to, like I said, Blake Corum running, trying to control the clock, trying to waste clock as much as possible, get any kind of score that you possibly can, touchdown, field goal, whatever. But I think Washington has the bigger capabilities of answering really quickly.
So I know you're huge on Corum. I don't think he's that much better than Johnson, honestly. He gets in the end zone more, but I think it's just because they don't have as great of a quarterback or wide receivers or tight ends as Washington. If you look at it just say yardage, I'm not saying anything else. Corum is 35th in college football. He's ranked 35th, whereas actually Dylan Johnson is ranked 24th. And so, and like I said, that's strictly just off of yardage. It's not off of carries or anything like that. Yeah. But Corum actually has more carries than Johnson. So I think their running backs are very similar. I think the injury could hinder Johnson a little bit, and I think that's the only reason why he actually isn't higher. And like you said, he's been playing through this, but even if you're playing through it, you're still feeling it, and you might just not be able to get that little more burst and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, me personally, I think they're very similar. Just for reference, the top running back in yardage is Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State, and he had 1,732 rush yards this year. And that was on 285 rushes and he had 21 touchdowns as well.
I could be a little bit biased. I have liked watching Blake Corum play. They've covered him a few times in different stories. I did some research on him, kind of his upbringing and all this stuff. He grew up in a small town in Virginia, a little small town, and he started playing football at a young age. And then at high school, he actually had to drive 2 hours each way to high school, basically to give him a better chance at getting college offers.
Wow, that's
it was something
crazy.
that like both of his parents worked too. So
and it's people like that you root for.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then like the whole thing about Blake Corum too is he never complained about it. He would wake up at 3-4 a.m. to go to school. He'd sometimes stop for workouts on the way, and then he'd come home, get home around 7:30, eat dinner, do his homework, wake up the next day, do it all over again.
Yeah.
And he never complained a single time. And then even now in college, he's all about giving. He's all about like doing community outreach stuff for the community and around Michigan. So it's cool to see players like that.
Well, it's like somebody like that you do want to root for.
So you want to see him do good. You want to see him succeed. And
don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't like the guy, and I could be a little biased as well because I am not a Michigan fan. I do not like Michigan. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Do not like Michigan. So it could be a little biased out of me too. So maybe I'm just all about Washington, and because we saw Washington as well, and last year we saw Georgia in the SEC championship, and so I want to go see like 2 in a row kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so I could be a little biased as well. And it's not like I've watched a ton of Michigan games or anything like that, but I love hearing those stories about these guys, and especially people like be able to give back once they have kind of made it a little bit and stuff.
Yep.
But I know your player, like we usually do the players of the week for your picks a little later. However, I'm pretty sure you're going to pick a couple guys from this game. So do you want to do those now?
Yeah, so I'll just knock out those right now. And Tim, you're right. I'm actually picking 2 players from this game. First one being Blake Corum. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's going to be a big reason if Michigan does win that they win. Or like if they win, it's going to be because of Blake Corum and what he brings to the team. And then on the other side, my other player is going to be Michael Penix Jr. I think just the level of talent that he brings, and Michigan has never really seen it, I don't think, this year. So I think it's going to be a very big mismatch for Michigan to kind of have to adapt and try to limit. So I think if it kind of seems like silly in a way to say that, well, if Washington wins, it's because Penix Jr. has a really good game. And if Michigan wins, it's going to be because Blake Corum has a really good game, because those are probably your best players on each team.
Yeah.
That's Penix Jr., no question. But Michigan, I guess there could be other players. But I think those 2 players are the keys of these teams.
Yeah,
the way they play. That's who I'm highlighting for my week. It's going to be awesome to see him play.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to see those. Let's go into our picks for the week. And last year, we ended up finishing tied, and which is kind of cool. But at the same time, I definitely wanted that win. But Michigan blew it for me. And so maybe that's why I'm a little biased against them too. I'm still frustrated. And it's funny because I didn't even want Bama. I don't like Bama either.
Yeah.
But I thought they would win, but I picked Bama. Kyle picked Michigan, and that was the only game we picked differently, and he was only 1 game behind me, so we ended up tying. The other game we both got Washington over Texas correct, and then the third we both got wrong. It was Vegas versus Seattle in the in the Winter Classic game, and we were way off on that one.
Seattle controlled it.
Exactly. They won 3-0. Their goalie played phenomenal. And that game was – I watched some of it. When they were introducing the players, when the Kraken were coming out, they were throwing fish over them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
I thought it was cool how they entered, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was so fun. And seeing I know I saw the MVP trophy, and the Kraken's goalie got it, and it's like a hot chocolate, but it was in like a Starbucks mug kind of thing. Yeah. And it kind of was cool. And so it was fun. It was weird seeing all the hockey players with the black under their eyes, but I'm sure there's a crazy glare on that. And so,
me and Tim will definitely have to get better at picking NHL games going forward. Wasn't the greatest start, but
we'll get better, we promise. Yeah. But first game, we got to pick Michigan versus Washington, championship game. I'll go first on this one. I'm going to go with Washington. This was a hard one for me, like we were saying, just with how good of Michigan's defense has been. However, I think Washington's offense is going to overpower them a little bit. I think Penix Jr. is going to go off. I think he's going to do really good, and he can spread the ball to 5-6 different guys pretty easily. I think Odunze can have a big game as well. And I just think Washington's going to take it.
Yeah, I think I've been going back and forth with this literally ever since we started talking about it this episode. But I'm going to go Washington as well.
I thought you were going to go Michigan.
I thought so too. I literally just keep on going back and forth. But
I thought you were going Michigan for sure.
I think with a lot of what Tim said, they just have too many options. They have too many offensive options that Penix Jr. can basically pick out of a bag and go to. And I just don't think Michigan really has that. So I think Washington, being the underdog again, I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I like going for the underdog too. Yep. Next one, we're going to go into NFL. Is the last week of the NFL before the playoffs, and there's a couple of playoff implications for sure. So first one we're going to pick is the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Winner of this gets their division, so it's definitely a big game. They still got a lot to play for. You want to go first? Or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm going to pick Miami. I think this will probably be a, unpopular pick, just because I know Buffalo's the favorite right now. But I think Miami is the better team. I think they're the better offense. And I think they're definitely the better defense. And Josh Allen just turns the ball over too much. And as long as you stop the run game and force Josh Allen to pass, I think there's also there's something going on, I feel like, with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, because Stephon Diggs has really been non-existent for the last few weeks, which is very strange because the Buffalo Bills are one of the hottest teams right now. But then you go look at Stephon Diggs, and he's not really doing anything. So it's mostly been their run game that has been winning them games. So, but I think Miami's going to come in. I think they got the better offense. Them being at home, I think they're going to win.
Yeah, before this last week, I think I would have picked Miami in a landslide, honestly. I think Baltimore definitely showed some stuff with Miami, so I think that's I'm taking that into consideration. And then I think it's going to be a huge blow that Miami lost Bradley Chubb. And like you said, Josh Allen throws a lot of picks, but I think that would have been massive, him pressuring Bradley Chubb, pressuring Allen. And so I'm actually going to go Buffalo. The way they've been playing the last few weeks, I think they're definitely on the up and up, and I think Miami's actually kind of trending down a little bit. But I'm going to go with Buffalo to win that one. This one, I think they're going to end up winning it and taking the division.
It'll be interesting on that game as well. Miami's already clinched a playoff spot, but Buffalo technically hasn't. If they win, they're obviously in. If they lose, they still have a 64% chance, according to NFL playoff picture. But yeah, it'll just be kind of interesting. Buffalo definitely needs this win a little bit more, but Miami wants to win this division. So,
for sure.
But yeah, that will be definitely a fun game.
Yeah.
Our last one, we're going Houston Texans at Indianapolis. I'll start this one off. I'm going to go Houston, the away team. I think C.J. Stroud has been phenomenal. He didn't look that great last week, and they still won pretty handily. I think it being his first game back from concussion, kind of getting back into things, but I think he's definitely the better quarterback. Houston's got somewhat, they're both basically the same on defense, but I think CJ Stroud in this offense is just going to be too good for Indianapolis. I think they're going to win.
For me on these picks, I try to keep emotion out of it. However, I feel like this is more of an emotional pick than anything that I'm going to pick. I'm going to go with Houston as well, and I think it's just because it's been like I would just want to see them get over that hump. And I like their coach, and I like the direction they're going in. And nothing against the Colts, but I think all the stuff with Jonathan Taylor and everything, it just kind of wore me out of the Colts a little bit. And I would love to see the Texans kind of get over that hump and get the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game or two. And so I'm going to go with the away team as well. So I'm going to go with the Texans as well. So for our picks, both of us got Washington in the championship game. I got Buffalo. Kyle's got Miami in the NFL. And then we both got the Texans games. Let us know what you guys think and what your picks are. Also, let us know about what you thought about this episode. Again, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram. Definitely let us know. We love interacting with you guys and just seeing what you guys think of the podcast so far.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for listening. Like I say, every single episode, it's a blast sitting across from Tim, recording this every single week, and it's definitely the highlight of my week. We love talking about it, love promoting it. But yeah, I can't wait to see your guys' comments. Definitely just share with your friends, family, and yeah,
whoever.
Hope everybody has a great week.
Yep. We'll see you later, alligators. Peace.